of September 2024. Welcome everybody. Hope you're doing well. That's not supposed to happen. That's supposed to happen somewhere. Look at there, I'm Dana Durnford. And you can call in at 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. And you can talk to me, or you can talk to Nuke Tart Stinky. Remember the Nuke Tart Stinky days when we used to have a robot, nuclear robot? Remember those days? Anybody remember them days? Hi everybody, I'm Nuke Tart Stinky. Hot Stinky. You pack of shit. Hi everybody, I'm Stinky. Woo! And of course you can reach Nuke Tart Stinky at the same number. I'm Nuke Tart Stinky. Hello everybody, how are you? Yay! I'm a pro-nuclear scumbag, and my name is Nuke Tart Stinky. We had a few little problems there earlier when we were trying to set them up, but Nuke Tart Stinky will show up randomly through this shows. They're only going to get better. Remember back in the days, every show I used to have one on my head and I used to keep punching them in the head? Those days are back. I need something that can put a smile on my face. Hopefully it does for you too. Which was really interesting because James Lewis sent me a link to a song that he's got in the competition. And lo and behold, here's a robot, and I was there creating the robot at the same time. Tell me that's not the weirdest coincidence you ever saw. Right, he's got a song that he's got remixed, put a lot of work into it. And it turns out I'm making a robot. I'm sitting there making a robot and looking at the picture, listening to his song. It was just priceless. Some things are priceless. That was one of them. And so there's a link right under the video because after the show is over, YouTube doesn't play my comments section where there's a link to. But YouTube doesn't play the comments section for 12 hours. And at 12 hours, my videos typically get 6, 7, 8, 10 seconds long or longer. And there's a whole lot of issues since I've had this site. My other site with almost 25,000 subscribers, they took down, I was looking for spiders because everybody hates spiders, I guess. Well, you don't have to hate them anymore. Most of them are gone now thanks to Japan's Pulse event. And look at these two charmers. This is your media. Your loving media. And that's what we got a poll about tonight, right? Is should journalists who say man-made radiation is like a banana, sunshine, sleeping on an airplane, or climbing a mountain, etc., etc., should they lose their degree because it's such an egregious lie? It's such a hateful lie to tell a lie like that. Yeah, it was pretty fun though. Here I am working on a robot. James's picture for his song is a robot. Great minds think alike, folks. Physicists, U2 completely liquefied. So you're going to start hearing about. We're going to cover headlines from the original first month or two, and basically a time machine. But this is what a journalist is, right? When it comes to nuclear, this is a journalist. And they spent 80 years telling you it's like potato chips. See potato chips to your left on the desk there, and their big beautiful desk, and a big banana in her hand, and this big stupid head. That's when I think of a journalist. That's what I see because we've been, and you would too if you're here regularly, I'm sure. And just trying to get myself back to life here, and it's a slow go. So Workers likely removed a panel in the side of the building reactor 2. We're picking up from last night, but you don't need to see last night's 2 because the next headline starts right away here. This is just stuff I didn't get to. No one removed the panel from reactor 2. No, nobody. There's nobody removing panels at reactor 2. And there's a simple reason that nobody removed the panel from reactor 2. Because right alongside of reactor 2 is reactor 3, and it was already blown up. So nobody's going to go in and remove a panel from reactor 2. Workers likely removed the panel. You had multiple reactors and fuel pools with decades of reactor cores detonating. There was nobody going there. And right alongside, on the other side of reactor 2, on the other side of reactor 2 was reactor 4. Now they're pretending they're at the top of reactor 2. Nobody's at the top of reactor 4. Nobody's at the top of reactor 4. That's reactor 4 over there. And on that was 100% meltdown. 8 reactor cores and the fuel pools melted down. And this is reactor 3. And it was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. And it lost 8 reactor cores plus the running plutonium mixed oxide reactor core. So 0 possibilities that workers likely removed the panel in the side of the building to vent steam from reactor 2 because it was a lethal dose no matter where you were stood up there. Like, think about what it looked like in the first, even 2 weeks. Let me just give you a visual of what. So reactor 2, that's the one they're talking about. But right alongside of it, on one side was reactor 3, melted down, and 8 reactor cores caught fire. And same thing with reactor 4 on the other side of it. Now, the people there are pretending, the media there are claiming they're at the top of reactor 4, but it doesn't actually exist. Now, at the same time, you got to realize they had a big fire. They had carnage. This is carnage. This is carnage. It's like a big wood chipper went through 1,200 miles of coastline. And anybody knows anything about water, you knows how incredibly unstable you become. And so the photographer didn't live to tell the tale. The person who took the picture lived to tell the tale, right? So suggesting that workers likely removed the panel, and number 2, while number 3, the Medusa, on one side is melting down and detonated, and reactor 4 on the other side is melted down and detonated. Well, welcome to the world of journalism. And that's what a journalist does. And they were telling you the whole time, oh, it's just like a banana. Don't worry, because it is like a banana. It's like a banana. Every time I heard the word banana, I just want to tear the head off somebody in the nuclear industry. I shouldn't do that, I guess. I can get away with something. The problem is that little robot has so many memories. And it felt good for a second, but that's about it. Figure 2 showed the reactor building unit 5 and 6. And the side roof of the buildings appeared intact. There was no sign of steam venting from the building, reactor 6. So you're looking at reactor 5 over there and reactor 6 right here. But reactor in 10 years later, there was drone footage that came out, and that's reactor 6. And so when you zoomed in on that footage, because this is original footage, you realize reactor 6 was pixelated. And when you zoomed right in, not only was the reactor pixelated out, but the common spin, or the pump house was pixelated out, and the stack, the vent stack for the fuel pool, was also pixelated out. Now, Pion Reactor 4, seems I got you here. Hang on a second. This is a crazy story anyway. I think this is it here. Hang on. That's the common span fuel pool. That's pixelated out too. And that's Pion Reactor 4. And it's the same height on the same level on the same street, but not as tall. And so the fuel pools were located actually on the ground, whereas the reactor buildings, they're at the top of these 190-foot, 19-story, 65-meter buildings. And so what would be the incentive to pixelate every speck of Reactor 4 out of the pictures, and why were they released 10 years later in a set of 730 or so pictures? And so, be very careful of these people. A journalist is the most dangerous creature, period, on this planet. Because they might have millions of people who are going to get on Twitter and Facebook and everything else, Instagram, and regurgitate their false narrative. That's their job, right? To inspire people to fight about what they think is facts. If you ask the average person, you just meet a random person and they happen to know about Fukushima a little bit, they're going to tell you, well, I thought they got all the fuel out of the pool, right? And then if you try to explain that to them, good luck. I mean, this industry is really something. Its brainwashing capacities is there's not much you can touch it. Today, a battle on the fundamentals, the Fukushima 50 versus New York's Picture newspaper. Fission impossible. Grave times. And so they didn't want anybody talking about this subject or anybody, because they wanted you to look at the tsunami. Right? They want you to look at the damage, they want you to look at this, they want you to look at that. They don't want you looking at these. They don't want you looking at that. And then pictures they do show you, talk about, and send you to look at is Reactor 2. And so why would you want to look at Reactor 2 when you got, holy shit, Reactor 3, and oh my goodness, Reactor 4. Is on top. I'm going to play this video. This is the media telling you on top of a building that don't exist. And it's hard to appreciate the gravity of why this is important. I get that. But it affects every facet of your life and the 8 million species. This is why they're pretending they're on top of a building. It's a very short clip. I put together 10 years ago, and I figured, that's it, I got them now, and I'm still playing this clip 10 years later, and nobody else is. Let's hit it.
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
I know I got no audio. Sorry. We're back. I'm sorry. Comments will show up in a second. Hang on. Let me open up the comments. Comments will show up in a second. Data! Yeah, we got audio. I'm just kidding you. Scud missile types. All right, let's keep going here. And so, when you think of a journalist or an academic, nuclear scientist, nuclear academic of any discipline in the nuclear industry, this is what they feel like they are. They feel like that's who they are. And in their own little tiny world, they see themselves as that, right? In fact, you know, a journalist sees themselves more like this than anything else. This disconnect that a nuclear scientist have, and you'll see all kinds of like Veritasium. There's very many of these pro-nuclear community out there, and this is what you see on their videos, right? Where they're all excited and they want you to be. But this is what they're really like. They look like that on the outside, but when the lights go out, a chest x-ray is a lot, isn't it? Ain't that a fun question? A chest x-ray. So if you were on top of reactor 4, it's a lethal dose right away. And yes, an x-ray is actually a lot. If the parents have, the mother has 2 x-rays while the child is, while she's pregnant, the baby has a 50% higher chance of getting cancer at a young age and has a very high chance of not graduating school. But you're missing the point, is they're pretending they're on a building that don't exist. And so the chest x-ray is an absurd lie because they're pretending they're on a building that don't exist. Figure 2 shows the reactor building for Unit 5 and 6, the size of the roof. Now, I already showed you just a few minutes ago that reactor 6, in particular, in pictures that were released, was pixelated out, right? So was the common spent fuel pool. So that's reactor 6, but reactor 5 wasn't. But we have the headlines, and over this next while, we're going to be covering quite a few stories about reactor 5 and 6. And they were pumping out radioactive water. So where was that radioactive water coming from? They were claiming they had power when it was insane to suggest they actually had power. And this is the picture they released. But the pictures that were released 10 years later of the drone, original drone footage, you don't see anybody working anywhere. And the reactor 6 is pixelated out. The pump house is pixelated out. And the stack, so these incredibly radioactive stack we're talking about. Forbes. The French system for cleaning Fukushima water was blamed for leukemia and polluted beaches in Europe. In other words, it doesn't work. Now, the French system that they're talking about, the Riva system, well, let's just run through their version first. The process, a French firm, which is the Riva, is actually the French government, right? Will use to clean Fukushima radioactive water has been blamed for leukemia clusters. Like all the nuclear power plants in France are surrounded by farms, and they're on the biggest source of fresh water for the country. 70% of the fresh water goes to the nuclear industry in France. The whole story is absurd. And then all the fish in the Rhine River, is it? All the fish in that river could be extinct in any given time there's a heat wave. Because then they just, instead of having a limit, they'll just say, well, we got to have the nuclears for the air conditioning, so too bad fishies. And for polluted beaches, irradiated water from the English Channel to the Arctic Sea. And we've covered that. We've showed many times the academic studies quantifying the Sellafield and Donneray in the United Kingdom, and the La Hague is just one of them in France. They reprocessed the fuel. La Hague got 500 security guards, for goodness sakes. They don't want anybody taking pictures and anybody getting close with a Geiger counter, right? Let's keep it rolling. From the English Channel to the Arctic Sea. Arriva. And the media comes out and claims it's your best friend. It's just like a banana. It's just like a potato chip. Has promised to remove up to 99.99% of the radioactive contaminants in the 67,000 tons of water flooding the crippled Fukushima Daiichi. And look at the word crippled, right? And I don't have the date on this story, unfortunately. It's within the first couple of weeks. So they promised from 99% of it. Well, here's the same Arriva system, August the 12th, 2014, 3.5 years after Fukushima started, the biggest event in human history, an extinction event for the species worldwide, you included. August the 12th, 2014, TEPCO to abandon the Arriva system among contaminated water crisis. For the last 3 years, the system was unused and kept out of operation. First off, how are you going to build the Arriva system? And there was the same thing with the ALP system, by the way. They didn't even start trying to build it till late 2013. It didn't get finished until 2015. The first part. But you can't use it. And here's the reason you can't use it. I don't know if I got it there tonight. It'll take me a second. Hang on, just bear with me. The Arriva system is the water filtration system from the French government, very similar to the ALP system, and I'll show you that too while we're here. So there's a link in the description. This the second link just below the top of the page to James Lucett's song that he's got a contest, anti-nuclear song, and we got one of our favorite songs that James plays all the time now. It's a great song. It kicks ass. All right. One of the problems is dismantling and disposing of it, and that the system itself poses a risk to workers. So think about some of these statements that they're making. One of the problems with dismantling and disposing of the decontamination system is becoming contaminated itself after processing the radioactive material. And that the radiation levels measured in the system posed a risk to the workers during operation and maintenance. And the design was so complicated it took 50 welders a month to put the system together. So when you come back to their story, you start realizing that the system can't work, and so they're dumping everything directly into the ocean. There's an illusion. What happens is You're pouring water over melted reactor cores. And then you're allegedly pumping up from wells on the site the radioactive water. And then, which, by the way, you're talking about multiple sieverts per liter. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose, which means you can't step over the hoses or the pipes that it's running through, and you can't get within hundreds of feet of the tanks. And what that means, though, is that you can't filter it, because the filter is so radioactive you can't get back in the building because it becomes a sniper round through gamma shines and X-rays, neutron bombardment, and beta rays and everything else. And because this is a raw energy that will melt your organs very quickly, within a few moments. If you were to come out of a shield area and stand up within sight of these things, once they start filtering, you can't filter it. The pipes would be too radioactive to drive alongside of, let alone walk alongside of. It would be lethal doses. And the real story is this industry is insane, has contaminated everything. Everything is pumped raw directly into the ocean because you can't filter it. The tanks are built simply, they're all built in 2013. We know now, because we have the documentation, there is no filtration system. It simply can't work. And it's the same thing, this is the REVA system, and they're the most prolific reprocessing. So if they can't filter it, nobody could. How could the Japanese master something that quick in such a complicated environment? AREVA has not revealed which chemicals it will use at Fukushima. Right? These journalists, right? Oh, AREVA hasn't revealed which chemicals it's going to use at Fukushima. La Hague, according to the Department of Energy, AREVA uses nickel and potassium ferrocyanide to capture cesium. Right? We've heard the same story with the Siri system, the same story with all these systems. Like, all the atoms are the same size. So cesium, uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, strontium, whatever, they're all the exact same size. And you can put 200 million of them on the head of a needle, but you can't see them. So suggesting that you can filter out one without filtering out all the others is impossible because they're all the same size. So if you got all 1 inch bearings, and you got a shifter for sizing, where you know, like you do for dirt, and all the big rocks will stay up, and it's a 1 inch diameter shifter where all the little squares are 1 inch, and you pour in that 1 inch bearings. Every one of those bearings are going to go through it, right? It's the same thing with these filtration systems. They're all the same size. And like the best of the best of the best face mask that they can build is still 50 microns bigger than the isotopes we're talking about, right? So they're going to go right through any kind of filtration system that you could breathe, and they're going to go through any kind of filtration system. You have to filter everything, all the water and all the isotopes. You can't separate it. And that's why when we look at academics all these years later, this is what we see. We see this creature that hates you, hates the insects, hates the birds, hates the animals. Barium sulfate to capture strontium. Cobalt sulfide for... Again, these people are insane to suggest that you can split atoms with a filtration system. If we're able to do that, there wouldn't be any worries. Now, the problem with it, though, is that if you could do it, because what happens is you got to filter it from something. So they dumped it into the tanks, right? So then the tanks are full of gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas, and by proxy X-rays. And because we're talking about so much, we're talking about particulates, when they settle at the bottom of the tank right away, you're going to have a chain reaction in the tank. It's going to burn a hole through the tank, and that's going to allow everything to flow out. And we're talking multiple sieverts per liter of beta that they acknowledge. Which means per liter, if that goes out, then anybody walking by it gets killed right away. No nuclear scientists have gone to the site because it's not like a banana. That's why they don't go there. It's not like potato chips. Despite what the disgusting journalists will tell you. Should journalists who say man-made radiation like a banana in the sunshine, and should they lose their degree? Yeah. When they're there telling you that this is who they are. It's not like they're trying to sell you a Timex watch or a pair of shoes or a vacation or something like this. They're selling you death. They're making you purposely complacent. And they've been at this for a very long time, right? This is, it's just a game to them, right? And they've been indoctrinating. They've been indoctrinating. Your kids and you and your loved ones for so long, and people resist for some reason. And YouTube, there's a lot there to get lost on, right? So you got the Hulk, you got Superman, you got Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man, the Hulk are created by the nuclear industry. The Hulk like Krypton, right? Or Spider-Man to Krypton. Well, Krypton is everybody's mortal enemy because it's such a nasty isotope, particularly puppies. And they created all these superheroes so the parents couldn't have influence over the kid. Right? And if you don't wear a cape, you can't compete. And it doesn't end there. You got GoPro hero, and that's everywhere. Oh, if you shot it on a GoPro, it must be good. Yeah, but my other camera is several $1,000s. Yeah, but it's not a GoPro. That's how a kid thinks, see? And Guitar Hero. Did you play Guitar Hero? No. Well, what's wrong with you? You can't be very good. In the old days, we got rid of our problem. We're not doing that anymore. Everybody in the media, anybody that calls themselves a journalist is a potential terrorist. In the old days, we got rid of our problems. No more problem, right? Oops, problem solved. Have a nice sleepy. The sludge is mixed or encased with bitumen, a petroleum product similar to asphalt. This is what they're doing with the stuff in the filtration. This is their version. I'll explain how this is insane. To make the resulting product waterproof and corrosion resistant. Well, the problem is, you're talking about gamma shines, beta rays, X-rays, neutron bombardments. Like, if the bitumen had the attributes to shield you, they would make everything at the nuclear plant out of bitumen, right? If bitumen wasn't going to break down, like they're using the best steel. Every piece of metal is inspected 3 different times. The cement is only the best of the best of the best ingredients, and probably filtrated water on top of that. And everything is triply inspected when it comes on the site and when it's ready to be signed off on. Everything's the best of the best. And the gamma shines, the X-rays, neutron bombardments, the beta rays, couldn't care less. They're going to wreck that. That means nothing to them. And so, like, our biggest problem is we got creatures out there they call themselves journalists. It says nothing got out of Fukushima, but they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. Try wrapping your mind around 30 million one-ton bags. It's quite hard, actually. And who are they? The so-called journalists. They interview everything. They've interviewed nuclear bombs. I got pictures of it. Look at it. They're interviewing a nuclear bomb with bananas for a hair. And they're feeding that to your children and their children. And it's not the way they do it is so sneaky, but the children becomes immune to radiation danger. They become complacent. They watch Simpsons all their life. Homer is a nuclear operator, and at the beginning of every show, he has a fuel rod. A fuel rod ends up in his hood. In his car, he's driving down the road. He picks it up and looks at it and throws it out the window. Like if you're within a few feet of a fuel rod, that's a lethal dose right away. You don't pick it up once it's gone through a chain reaction. And it's just 30 years of this indoctrination. And Homer, of course, makes everybody feel good because he's so incompetent. But that's your typical employee at a nuclear plant. This is your typical journalist. Right, Stinky? Stinky Nuke Tart. Hey, Stinky, where you to? Come on up here. I'm feeling a bit like punching something in the head. This is Stinky. We're just practicing, right? We're trying to get... and the bottom of his feet got little nuclear feet. I screwed up. I was putting them together at night. But generally, Stinky would sit right here under my arm. And this is, whenever reading stories, this is what we were doing for the rest of the night. Mary Bird Davis, an author and expert at French nuclear industry, says that Arriva's reintroduced or reduced its use of bitumen, and since 28 preserves most of the sludge suspended in glass. But the glass or the bitumen or whatever is going to break down at the same quicker than steel is, and quicker than stainless steel, quicker than titanium. It's a total fabrication that it can contain it because of the Wigner effect from the neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the gamma shines, the X-rays, wrecks the integrity of the most precious metals that we got. The cleaned water, you can't clean that. It's gone through a chain reaction. Hey, hang on, I got to put nuke turret back down there underground for a minute. Poked myself in the eye. Now I got to fix that. You can't clean the water. It's absurd to suggest you can. And their version of clean is it meets a standard that got larger and larger many times each decade for the last 8 decades. The industry has no checks and balances whatsoever. Nothing. Meanwhile is discharged into the English Channel. They got 8 million liters a day from Sellafield Windscale, formerly known as Windscale, which is now called Sellafield, that had a plutonium mixed oxide reactor meltdown in 1957. It's still hemorrhaging 8 million liters a day into the Atlantic Ocean. This is saturated with the nastiest stuff imaginable. It's an industry with zero checks and balances because it could never get away with that if there was real checks and balances. And that the decommissioned authorities in the United Kingdom, same as everywhere else, calling them incompetent is being polite. They haven't decommissioned anything in their entire legacy. And they keep creating these new entities because each entity will steal enormous amounts of money. So the entity is created to locate money. The money gets stolen. And rather than have to answer for it, they just create a new entity so they can do the same scam over and over and over. And they've been doing this. We cover it every single year. After treatment, liquid effluents are filtered and monitored and released into the English Channel by means of a pipe, and the end of which is located in Ras Blanche current. It's a well-known strong current. And it'll travel underground on land for 2,500 meters for 1.5 miles, and in the sea for 3 miles, 5,000 meters, an additional 5,000 meters. So 3 miles out to sea, 1.5 miles away from the sea. So the gamma shines, the X-rays, the neutron bombardments, the beta rays, the alphas, all of these are pulses of speed of light energy. When they hit each other, they don't mix. They reflect off each other almost at the speed of light. Two objects traveling almost at the speed of light and then changing direction. That's known as an X-ray. That's devastating effect on pipes. So those pipes are going to lose their integrity right away, and this stuff is going to end up in the water tables. But on the flip side, what are you pumping it in the ocean? Why is that the solution? Because first off, why don't you put that in glass or bitumen and store it? If it's so fucking good. Excuse the language. Why pump it into the ocean? And this is the nasty stuff. We're talking about reprocessing facilities where it's reclaim uranium, reclaim plutonium. And this is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. You can't perceive the amount that it takes to cause you harm for the rest of your life or your loved ones or your children or your friends or your families or your communities or the biosphere itself. You can't perceive it. But I can guarantee you, every nuclear power plant on the planet, the fuel pools, and there's over 1,000 of them worldwide, are splitting atoms directly with no containment, directly into the environment. If you could see it, you wouldn't step outdoors anywhere on this planet. It would look like if uranium isotopes were red and plutonium was green and blah, 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 purple and yellow and blue, the whole planet one big stupid rainbow of radioactive fallout, right? It'd be hideous. If you could see it, you would get it right away. All the plants, all the trees, the pollen is radioactive each year. I mean, they have screwed this up. Clearly, it's on purpose what they got done. It's an agenda that's 80 years strong. And La Hague and United Kingdom combined have been shown to have contaminated the Arctic all the way to all of Europe and the Arctic perpetually. And that all of United Kingdom plants, all of France's plants, nuclear power plants, are surrounded by farms as far as you can see it. And most of France's reactors are on fresh water, not ocean water. So their effluences, their releases, are going into the drinking water. Well, they can't contain the fuel pools. So, like, say there's 8 reactor cores in the fuel pools of each building from 40 years of reactors, because you don't have a repository anywhere on the planet. So each of the 1,000 pools are producing the same amount of atoms as you would to produce power for 8 million homes from each pool. There's a 1,000 plus fuel pools on the planet. Each pool with around 8 reactor cores is the same amount, would produce power for 8 million people. And once you take it out of the reactor, once it goes through a chain reaction, it'll continue to split atoms. Now imagine how many atoms you need to boil a glass of water. Imagine how many atoms you need to boil a glass of cup of tea or coffee for 8 billion people, or for 8 million people every 2 minutes. And those atoms in the fuel pools have no containment, whereas the reactor does. And so each day, this is a bioaccumulation of yesterday, and then the next day is another bioaccumulation the last couple of days. And 80 years times bioaccumulation. This stuff never goes away, and it's pulsing energy almost at the speed of light. So the biggest threat to humanity and the 8 million species, and the children, like girls, young girls in particular, are the most vulnerable. So we got to protect the young females of all species. They're 4 times more vulnerable than a male. And then the females are born with all their eggs. And so this assaults that immediately. And so ultimately, you sterilize the population, both males and females. And this is why you're not seeing the insects on your windshields like you would expect pre-Fukushima. This is why you're not seeing the insect-eating birds, is because their food disappeared. This is why you don't see fish jumping in ponds anymore. This is why you see 10,350 emaciated gray whales in the last 5 or 6 years. This is why you see 7,000 emaciated, starved to death, disappeared. These all died, of course, of the humpback whales. This is why you're seeing, and for everyone that you find, there's 10 that sank you didn't see, right? You know, the 1,000-beak whales, they're washed up in the United Kingdom. These are deep divers you normally never see anyway because they're deep divers. To find 1,000 of them meant 10,000 died or more. And they were found over a long period of time, over many months, in different stages of decomposition. And so a whale, see, can migrate a long way just on its fat reserves. So it takes thousands of miles to go from 10, 12 inches of blubber down to 2 inches and then show up emaciated on your doorsteps. And it's the same thing with the migratory birds. Normally they can go to the tidal zone and there'd be 700 algae in British Columbia, Alaska, and California coastline. And just in those 700 algae were 5,500 invertebrates without the backbones. Like little shrimp, right? But there was thousands of different species of those things. There was unbelievable amount of, there was 30,000 insects at the high tide line in that same Pacific coastline. You got a big tide exchange twice a day, right? And so the insects would come down and feed. There was incredible diversity for the migratory animals. Not to mention the crabs and the snails and the mollusks and the periwinkles, not to disregard any of the unbelievable amount of species that are able to dive. Like the common murres would dive 600 feet all day and feed on anchovy, squid, sardines, and krill and stuff like this. And you find 1 million of them showing up emaciated over a coastline, and then at the same time you're finding 1 million Cassini auklets. And these are one feeding on fish about this big, the other one is feeding on microscopic fish. It's a microscopic animal like zooplankton and phytoplankton. So when you got 2 different spectrums of the food chain showing up on the coastline at the same time, emaciated, and we're talking in unprecedented numbers never recorded in human history, and then they try to blame that on domoic acid, and then the test always takes a couple of years. Of course, they can do the test that afternoon. No, we'll have the results in a couple of years. And because we're at this all the time, we have the luxury of following up on it. And it never is the domoic acid. That always comes back negative. If you look at all the die-offs of the pilot whales in 2014, 2015, 2016, they always checked their stomach for content like to do with the other whales. And they were always empty in those years. They were showing up in groups. And it was always suggested they died because they were starving, and that's why they ran up on the beaches. Not because one of them got sick and the rest followed them up. But we're seeing that with all species. We're seeing it with fin whales, blue whales. We're seeing it in sperm whales. It's not just pilot whales. We're seeing this particular attribute. The The liquid discharges from La Hague's result in contamination area beaches and of seas as far as away as the Arctic Circle, and are considered among the 10 main anthropogenic sources for radioactive pollution for the world's oceans. What's the chances I can find? Iodine 129. Let me see if I can find that study. So iodine 129 pre-nuclear was, don't quote me, was a couple of 100 pounds in all the oceans combined. It's got a 50 million year half-life. In Canada, United States, it was 220 million atoms per liter in the sustained in the radioactive fallout post-Fukushima. And I actually got the documentation of the differences pre-nuclear and then the first decade after the nuclear industry in the United Kingdom got off the ground. And between them and France, they had added something like 2,200 pounds of iodine 129 to the biosphere in just the first decade. And it was considered normal just to dump all your radiation into the oceans and estuaries and rivers. And for many decades, this was the norm. And there was a lot of people who started working out what was going on and speaking out about it. And so they allegedly gave it up, but they didn't, did they? At all, did they? I like that picture there where you got a baby whale with a human head and a t-shirt on. At the bottom. How weird is that? Now I know I screwed up the audio there for about a half a minute or something. Health researchers have documented higher rates of leukemia near La Hague. Leukemia clusters, actually. So if radiation was causing leukemia clusters, and they were, you can be sure of it, it was causing many other types of clusters. Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. And Greenpeace has turned the controversy into a video game called Block That Pipe. It's 11 years ago, Block That Pipe. In Japan, AREVA has not mentioned ocean discharge, a disposal method already employed by the Tokyo Electric Power Company to get rid of thousands of gallons of what is described as least contaminated water. The least contaminated water. You can trust a journalist, though, to keep you up to speed and take care of it and get to the bottom of it so you don't have to worry. A journalist is the first person to cut your throat. They're the very first person. And people just run to their favorite journalists at 6 o'clock every night and they cut your throat and tell you how great their life is. AREVA has said the clean water could be recycled as coolant for the reactor cores. And I think this is where that narrative came from, that TEPCO was claiming they were filtering the water. Half of it was sprayed back on the reactor for cooling, and the other half was put in the tanks, where it allegedly only had tritium. Remember those stories? And you remember these stories where they talk, because we cover it all, and the stories where they talk about how they would clean the tanks out so they can reuse the tank after they filtered all the water and all the radiation. But as anybody knows, the bottom of the tanks are going to be sludge. There's nobody going in there collecting the sludge. They got a robot right now that they're hoping over 2 weeks can get 3 grams out of the. But if you go, a robot is fixing Fukushima. You see those headlines everywhere for the last week or so. This is an industry that doesn't open its mouth unless it's got a lie to tell. And that the people that defend it are literally the worst humans you can imagine. Do you know what they're doing? Oh, it's like a banana. It's like a potato chip. Isn't that a great picture of a journalist? Areva said the clean water could be recycled as coolant for the reactor core. Of course, the French are despicable. It's despicable what they've done to the French Polynesians. It was equal to a Nagasaki bomb a week for 12 years, radioactive fallout. And to this day, they refuse to acknowledge that radiation has any adverse effects. And so you're talking about administration after administration after administration, government after government after government, have all conspired not to help the French Polynesians. And they didn't do the nuclear testing out to the French Polynesian because of secrecy. They done it out there because they didn't want to contaminate France directly. They knew the radioactive fallout was brutal, so they went to the French Polynesians, which had no military, no army, no navy, no functional, no way to stop the French. And so they went there and contaminated not only the French Polynesian, but the entire biosphere and ecosystem for over 12 years with radioactive fallout. And the British went to Australia, used to wait for the wind to blow across Australia before they set off their nuclear weapons. But they also done 700 plus dirty bombs on land in Australia. There was one incident where I can't remember which bomb it was, nuclear weapon. Adelaide was 1,000 miles away, I think it was, 1,000 kilometers away or something. And it was 90,000 counts per minute in Adelaide, which was the capital, I believe, at that time, of gamma. 90,000 counts per minute of hardcore gamma. But they also done 700 dirty bombs where they wrapped up fission product, uranium, plutonium, and detonated it. And that these places were restricted for many years because they were so radioactive. And they knew exactly what was going to happen. They went all the way there because they didn't want to contaminate Great Britain. And that basically the British created Australia, right? That was a penal colony. And so it didn't mean nothing to them to go there and poison the water, the food, the land, the air. They don't see them as humans. Same as Israel doesn't see the Palestinians as humans, right? The average person in Israel, if they had a button can push and kill all the Israeli Palestinian children, rather, they would do it in a heartbeat. I don't give a shit about Hamas. They can't be evil without Hamas. They need Hamas so they can be evil scum, right? Everybody knows it. But if you try to talk to these people, you're talking to a vicious animal. You don't understand. They hate us, so we got to kill them. They got generation after generation being brought up that way, and the current generation thinks their entire life is built around how do you kill everybody in Palestine. As crews work to shut them down, the process will take months, could take years, but there is far more water flooding the plant than is needed to cool it. In France, the most common parallel process is evaporation. So what France does, it doesn't filter it, it evaporates it into the biosphere. Same as Lake Barrett and Arnie Gunnison done at 3 Mile Island. Just evaporate the highly radioactive, make it airborne so everybody's breathing it. Because some contaminants are gases, well, such as isotopes of iodine, the escaping vapor must be filtered. You can't filter it. How can you filter an atom? It doesn't work that way. It's basic science, for goodness sakes. Each time that waste are treated by heat, whether to reduce the volume or for another reason, there's a risk that the radionuclides and or toxic material accompanying the radionuclides will become volatile and escape into the environment. Filtration systems are never 100% effective. They're not effective at all. You can't filter out the atoms. Period. The IRRIVA president at the time said water treatment at Fukushima could begin in late May. Of course, 3 years later, I already showed you a clip earlier, the system was unused and kept out of operation. They tried to use it once, it became so radioactive they couldn't do any maintenance on it. You had to run away. And they didn't know how to tear it apart because it was a big nuclear waste pile. Same as the Siri system, same as the ELP system. IRRIVA is setting up the water treatment plant with Veolia Water, a British water treatment firm. It will treat 50 tons of water per hour, they said. It'll do no such thing. Someone should treat them with 50 tons an hour. So the IRRIVA, the ELP system, this is February 11, 2013. These images were released, and this is the ELP system. They're building it February 11, 2013. There it is, the ELP decontamination system under construction. So go ahead, August 9, 2004. They were hoping to have it running by 2015, early 2015. They struggled with decontamination for years, water, and just announced recently they think they finally have the ELP decontamination system operational. But officially it wasn't until... But look at the Great Lakes here. So the Great Lakes are saturated with nuclear dumps, nuclear power plants, all nuclear disease factories, and are right on the Great Lakes. The third biggest body of fresh water in the entire planet is completely already destroyed. And all of these sites are built on hills that run straight down into the Great Lakes. Okay, so the IRRIVA system, which is at the same place as the ELP system I just showed you, for the last 3 years is unused and kept out of operation. But the story that we were talking about was from the first month. And so it never did, in other words, it never did become operational. Neither did the ELP system. Because you can't filter. Fukushima partial meltdown. Because that's why we love journalists. You can count on a journalist, right? They're your friend. Look at him. He loves you so much. His job is to stab you in the back, and your job is to like it. Come on, you know it. You know what I'm saying is true. You know what I'm saying is true. Their job is to write a little story. The partial meltdown increases fear, contaminated seawater and soil. Have a nice day, kiddies. Ha ha ha. And this is The Guardian. And calling themselves The Guardian is pretty slick. And we see a lot of the most revolting media will even call themselves the Patriots and stuff like this. But these are these are just traitors. These are the worst humans imaginable. These are unconscionable. A journalist is somebody to fear. It's somebody. It's your immediate enemy. It's your natural enemy. Like a duck's enemy is a fox, or a deer enemy is a wolf. Your enemy is a journalist, right? You know I'm right. Partial meltdown. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And that's the nuclear scientist right there, look. When he's teaching, he takes his human skin off. This is Jim McCurry in Tokyo on March the 28th. And let me see. I got a picture of him, actually. There it is. Hey, Jim. How you doing, buddy? Go easy on us. We want to have a future, you know. High levels of radioactivity in water leaking from a reactor at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant resulted from a partial meltdown. This is not a partial meltdown. These are multiple reactors. Reactor 3 and 4, they're different reactors. They're way bigger than Chernobyl. At the top of the building was 8 more of them in fuel pools. The volume, just a single reactor, is the volume of it is worse than Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, the Keystone, the Mayak. It's worse than Windscale combined. These reactors are pure uranium, pure plutonium. There are massive inventories in the fuel pools of reactor cores. They're no different. They're already gone through a chain reaction. They're just like a normal reactor core. The reactor cores, you know, are only 3% used. When you take them out, they're brittle from gamma shines and beta rays, neutrons, and everything else. And so what happens is they got hundreds of trillions of microscopic cracks into it. And they're afraid of a runaway because they're not able to contain the emissions anymore in the zirconium claddings. And so they take it out. And if it's not too brittle, they might reuse it, right? So about 1/3 of it comes out every 14, 16 months. Because it's too brittle, it's not performing, it's running away, or whatever the case may be. Contamination of the pool of water in the turbine building at a number 2 reactor, which looks like it's intact. Number 2 still looks like it's intact, right? But number 2 at 100,000 times normal. But you have no way of quantifying it. You can't go to number 2 because right alongside it is number 3. Number 3 ejected the reactor core and the fuel pools right out of the buildings. And just a reminder, if you scroll up to the top of the comments section, but also you'll see it in the description section, James Lucid put out a song, and that link will take you right over to it. It's in the competition for anti-nuclear, and the more views he gets, the more likely he is to get a shot at. He's produced a lot of music. We got some great music. And I feel bad because it's like this one song, Calm Down Charlie, I'm basically addicted to it. But he's got so many great songs. I'm stealing them all and with intentions of using them. There's every taste of music, too, you can imagine. And it's getting much better each time, obviously, right? It's not the norm, but one of the best things to fight any industry, any corruption with is music, right? And if you're watching this right after the show, the comment section won't be there. Right below the video, though, there is a link. Just a couple of sentences down, you'll see the link. On Sunday, the firm said that the figure was 10,000 times higher. In addition, radiation above 1,000 millisieverts, which is a million microsieverts, which is a sievert. 1,000 microsieverts is a sievert. Was found in the surface water and trenches outside the number 2 reactor. It was actually a million sieverts found right alongside of it because reactor 3 and 4 on each side of reactor 2 detonated. But number 2 looks almost normal. So let's not talk about these buildings. Let's talk about the one that looks almost normal. It added that the trenches, now remember this is still in March. You're still in March of 2011. But you can see they could not rule out that the radioactive water is seeped into the ground. Well, the reactors blew up. So the cover story was really, it was really embedded right away. Okay, let me keep going here. It is clearly not safe for people to remain in Lydia, especially children and pregnant women. Like, if it's not safe for children and pregnant women, it's not safe for anybody else. It could mean receiving the maximum allowable dose of radiation only a few days. The maximum allowable dose is based on bananas and potato chips, by the way. It's not based on anthropogenic man-made radiation. And that's right from the International Atomic Energy Agency's butthole. The group's radiation safety expert. Are they talking about Greenpeace again? Yeah. Greenpeace, like, I sent Greenpeace, let me see if I can find a picture, and video of media pretending they're on top of reactor 4 and asked them to retweet it out. And they blocked me on all their Twitter accounts in Canada, United States, Greenpeace Australia, Greenpeace New Zealand, Greenpeace International. They all blocked me after I posted a picture of reactor 4 with the journalist pretending they're at the top of the building. For some reason, that picture that I have everywhere, because I'm rusty, out of practice now, I can't find it. I played it earlier. I just, I have no excuses. Ah, there it is. So, like, a journalist's job is to stab you in the back. That's the journalist's job. Their job is to cut your throat, push you off a cliff, and take your car for a joyride. That's their job. That's just a fraction of the media pretending on top of a building that don't exist. Here we go. We're ready to go again here. So we've been listening to these journalists for years and years and years telling us it's like a banana, but it's not like a banana at all, is it? It added that the trenches did not lead to the sea, time at around number 2, but conceded it could not rule out the radioactive water seeped into the ground. I mean, just first off, you're not walking around on that site. You had multiple nuclear reactors melt down and fuel pools detonating. There's still no one just wandering around. And talking about Lydia, I know I butchered the name, they knew better. They knew that you should abandon, period. Everybody should run away. It's like Hiroshima. Let me bring it up. This is a batshit story. It really articulates the story, though. And it's kind of a sad story, right? Let me see here. Why have I got so much stuff, I wonder? Did I do a short version of this song? No. Hang on. Not song, but story. I got it. I'm sorry. Okay, I don't got it. Here it is. Look at that. Huh? Who's laughing now? Who's laughing now? Look at me now. I got it. Elementary school in Japan is using water bottles instead of evacuating the victims, the children, the most vulnerable of society. They're using water bottles because some journalists said, yeah, use bananas and potato chips and water bottles to shield children. Stop complaining. An elementary school in Koriyama City, where every house, every business, every building is entitled to be decontaminated. Of course, you can't decontaminate a building or a city. How does that work? Oh, that's right. They use power washers, was it? Like someone came by and dropped some mud on your house. This is radiation, not dirt we're talking about. That's the worst thing you can do is use a power washer. That's How they cleaned them up? That's the official way to clean them up, the batshit crazies. And nobody challenged it, right? An elementary school in Koriyama City is located in Fukushima Prefecture, 34 miles west of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disease factory. Is using water bottles to shield the radioactive pulse of energy from the garden, from the yard, from the courtyard, and other areas outside the school in a nuclear wasteland. And the bottles are filled with water and placed on shelves and in boxes, which are stacked around the classroom, inside and outside. And using water bottles to shield the radiation coming from the courtyard. According to one school, it seems to have reduced the radiation levels inside by 1/3. Which means, like, what you're not supposed to fill up boxes with water bottles at a school for children to protect them. You move the children out of there as quick as you can. And so, like, these are the same people that if there was a forest fire, they would say, wait for the forest fire to move this far, 600 feet, and then bring the children over on the other side that's burnt out and have a picnic. That's what a nuclear scientist would suggest, see? According to the lunatics in the school, the nut jobs, the people that they trust their children to be taken care of by, because like if they say, well, we got to evacuate, they don't got a job no more. So we got to keep the kids there so they can get their paycheck every fucking week. And if you tell me this is not batshit crazy, you don't know. You just don't understand how terrible this industry actually is, how horrible they treat everybody, and what they look like in real life. That's what they look like in real life. That's a journalist right there. Got their potato chips, their bananas, and their tongue is actually something that destroys life. And that's a great picture, actually, isn't it? That's a journalist right there. That's probably one of the best pictures of a pro-nuclear journalist I ever saw. Residents of Koriyama City are concerned about the high amount of radioactive material found around their town. Their town is in a nuclear wasteland, surrounded by nuclear wastelands. Hang on. Where they picked up 30 million one-ton bags of radiation. So 30 million one-ton bags of radiation is enough to do this around the entire planet 5 times. I'm sorry. It's enough to build a highway that looks like this around the entire planet. That's what 30 million one-ton bags would do. You could build a highway of one-ton bags right around the entire planet. And this was 3% of where am I to? This was 3% of Fukushima Prefecture. 70% of it is forest or something. So every time the wind blows, everything is recontaminated right once again, right? Every time you have a forest fire, everything is liberated back into the biosphere. A journalist is somebody you fear, especially when it comes to nuclear. They're the first one to kill you when your loved ones destroy your future. But it's worse than this. Residents of Koriyama City, school lunches are tested for radiation. Are they really? Every billion there is entitled to be decontaminated, but there's nothing in the lunches. Parents are concerned because they are largely unable to find out where the items were originally produced. And because Koriyama City is outside the evacuation zone, the government has barely conducted any decontamination activities. So it's it's slightly out of the evacuation zone. Here's some other communities that are also slightly out of the. So you see the communities to your left, and then the next line, population in each community, and then the highlighted one, that line is cesium only, 137 only, because that's the United Nations, right? This is United Nations UNSCLEAR, United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. These are the very, very, very last people you should ever trust in any shape or form. The very, very last people. They're the worst. The United Nations are the worst of the worst. They have no right to exist. They're just a corporation like McDonald's. And they have somehow, in increments over many decades now, infiltrated almost every facet of your life. And they set the policies in your country, enforces it. And that's what's going on with 195 countries worldwide. It's a very powerful corporation that is simply can be described as the devil itself. And so these communities are excluding all other radioactive isotopes. So only cesium-137. So this line here, all of these communities, this is per square meter. And Koriyama City had 162,000 cesium gamma per square meter is leaps and bounds above what was considered an evacuation zone pre-Fukushima, was about 185 atoms. Not 185,000, but 185 becquerels, which is what, not millisieverts, not microsieverts, but becquerels, physical atoms. And so if you're going to have that much cesium-137, so after 3 years, the fuel starts producing 100-to-1 ratio of strontium-90, for instance. Which means now you got, for every cesium-137, there's 100 times strontium-90, which is a brutal, brutal bone seeker. Hi, everybody. Yeah, Greenpeace is just unfreaking believably despicable, isn't it? And so all of these communities, and it's all take your church to the whole alphabet, A to Z, are outside the evacuation zone. They abandoned Minnesota for 7 years, and then they tricked people into going back. Not many went back, but some did. This, if I had wrote a movie script pre-Fukushima, for instance, no one would believe it. Everybody said this is absurd and let's get lost. Elementary school in Japan is using water bottles to shield students anyway, back to that story that we were covering. Japan's Nuclear Industrial Safety Agency, NISA, said the radioactive iodine 131, for every 131 was 10 times more 132, 30 times more iodine 133, 31 times more iodine 129. And the numbers in North America were 220 million atoms per liter of iodine 129, which doesn't go away for over 15 million years at a decay. Which is not a decay, it's a detonation. 15 million years of detonations for it decays to its next isotope. 50% of it, rather. And that goes on for 10 times. So 150 million years. But if you go, like they say, well, once it decays down to radioactive, anthropogenic radioactive lead, it's no longer harmful. But there is papers out there suggesting that even that is not considered harmless because of the bioaccumulation effects. And when you got enough of that going on, you no longer have, because anthropogenic man-made stuff is not created by the sun, right? It's not from the solar system. which is what we're made. We're made of stuff from the solar system. We're made of stardust. All living life is stardust from the solar system, basically. That's the consensus. But the man-made stuff is not stardust from the solar system. It's man-made. This is why we give it a designation anthropogenic man-made. NISA spokesperson said he suspected radioactive water from the plant was leaking into the sea. On Sunday, he denied any connection between the two. Idano, we got a picture of Idano. That's him there. Said that partial meltdown, and there was no evidence of subsequent meltdown. My goodness. And this guy was frighteningly evil, the things that he was doing, Idano. Well, all the media, all the journalists, put an enormous amount of energy into stabbing you in the back. These people are pretending they're on a building that doesn't exist. Like suggesting that's a partial meltdown when the reactor core and the fuel pools, part of the buildings, are gone. The fuel pools have around 8 reactor cores because you don't have a repository anywhere. And that the models of the radioactive fallout are just from France, no less. Typically the most conservative. This model is based on 16 days or 15 days or something. Yeah. This is 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air of cesium-137. Let me see here. That's not the picture I wanted to. There we go. I wanted a double picture of the reactors. So when he says there's no evidence of a meltdown, have a look at these buildings that don't exist anymore. That's as meltdown as you'll ever see. Hopefully you never see anything worse than that. But when it comes to meltdowns, brother, that is the ultimate meltdown right there. That is holy smokerooey stuff. But they worship the 1-ton bags now. That's their new god, right? Is the 1-ton bags. And a journalist ignoring 30 million 1-ton bags. I mean, my goodness, right? Should journalists who say man-made radiation is like a banana, sunshine, climbing mountains, sleeping next to somebody, potato chips, etc., shouldn't they be held to a higher standard for lying to you? Is it a crime to seek the truth? Is it a crime? So when a journalist tells you that it's harmless, it's like bananas and potato chips, and they've done that for years, and we come out and attacked everything that we found that was saying that. And the problem was it was perpetual, relentless liars. That's what a journalist looks like. That's your number one enemy. It's not me saying that. It's Stinky, the nuke tart. Stinky, the nuke tart says, don't trust the scientists. Don't trust the scientists. Don't trust the scientists. Stinky nuke tart says, don't trust the scientists. The Stinky, the nuke tart is always right. Efforts will continue to pump in fresh water. They didn't have any fresh water in the 28. We're almost through this story now. The radiation seems to come up from the fuel rods that were partially melted down. Let's have a look at that again. I can't tell the difference. Is that a partial meltdown or a meltdown? There's 4 of these reactors melted down and 8 fuel pools at the top of each building. Airborne radiation has been confined to the reactor buildings. Let me see how confined. Do you think the radiation is confined to those buildings? Anybody? Am I just being too picky? Am I being too negative? Yes, Dana. That's what a journalist will say. Dana is too negative. Airborne radiation was confined to the reactor buildings. For some reason, I have a hard time accepting that. I don't know. Maybe I'm nearsighted, but it looks to me like the buildings are destroyed. Anybody agree with me? Is that destroyed or what? How is that not destroyed? Anybody? I can't tell. It looks like a normal building to me, Dana. I'm a nuclear expert. Who said that? Oh, he did. He says, cross my heart and hope to die. Dana, I'm an expert. When I look at those buildings, clearly nothing got out. The radiation was confined to the building. Dana, look at it. I wouldn't lie to you. I don't believe you. I think you're lying to me. Dirk, 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 dirkity. So what's the best way to save a journalist from drowning? You take your foot off his head? Or you keep your foot... Oh, no. You got to keep your foot on his head, Dana. Oh, so that's how it was done. Who said that? Was that a journalist that said that? I must have been a journalist. I can't see why anybody else would lie about it. There we are. So do you think that journalist there would lie to you? How about this one here? Do you think he would lie to you? Hang on, I screwed up. I'm pushing too many clicks. It's just like the good old days. I removed him. So, if you think I should keep if you think I should keep what's his name? Nuke Turd. The Nuke Turd. I gotta get him a cape. I gotta get him a cape, right? Can't be a Nuke Turd without a cape. Hey, Stinky, stay still. There we go. There we go. His head has shrunk a little bit. You all get the pictures, though. Hello, everybody. I'm Nuke Turd, the one-armed bandit. I got one arm, Dana. And I got 2 left feet. I got 2 left feet. I got to make his legs shorter because he's too tall for the show. I kill all the people and all the insects, all the animals. I am nuclear. Yay. So if you think I should keep Stinky, the Nuke Turd, give me a thumbs up. He's going to get better. He's got to go for some plastic surgery there. I'll get it. Remember years ago I used to do that? You start giving punches in the head every time. Instead of yelling at the Nuke Turds, you just punch him in the head. Those days are coming back, but I'm not really up to it yet. I need a few more days to rest. The good old days when the trolls were screaming, "It's like a banana. It's like a potato chip." Let's come over and look at the poll. I think we're at that time. Should journalists who say man-made radiation is like a banana and sunshine, etc., lose their degree? I got 100% yes. 100%. I'll take it. Now, there's a link there to James' song. I'm going to play another song by James, or closeout song. That's enough for day and night. I worked really hard on my Stinky, the Nuke Tart robot. And so, we'll be back tomorrow night. We're going to be picking up right there. Oh, we're going to go back into that story. Look at that. Well, I got a long way to go to finish that story off. 5, 10. I got 10 more to get through. We'll pick up there tomorrow night where we left off tonight. It's a little embarrassing because I got 4 folders. We're still on the first folder. This is day 2 of the original headlines. And we got around 14,000 pictures of the research expedition we carried out of 3,000 kilometers of coastline, 1,100 ponds, 100 communities. It's an extinction event. And that document will be coming up soon. And so I'm going to play another one of James' songs. There's one of James' songs he's got into a contest. The link is below, so make sure you give that a peep. And any money he raises, he's going to throw back into the operation. He's already done so much, my goodness. But it's a good radiation song. But he's got all kinds of different genres too, right? So this one I'm going to play now. I'm going to shut up and just play this song. And that's the end of the show. We see everybody. Kevin Blanche likes the new puppet prop. Thanks, Kevin. We're off to a good start. So everybody, give me a thumbs up if you like that. And we'll keep them around. Anyway, have a great night, everybody.
In the Tokyo Bureau, swirling smoke and neon beams. Chicago division, fueled by heated dreams. Calm down, Charlie calls in, voice smooth as silk. Says, Dana, you're dreaming, don't cry over spilt milk. On Dana Durnford show, the chatter's turning wild, but Charlie shoots it down with that cool cat style. Unit 3's no killer, no harm to see life. He chuckles in the static, cuts through the strife. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show. With a snap and a grin, Charlie's voice so clear scatters the dread, dispels all the fear. Mux didn't hurt, he croons with a sigh. Science is for thinkers, not a whim or lie. Though Dana and the crowd may shout and roar, Charlie's unfazed, he's heard it all before. His swinging rationale, like a soothing song, says, hold on to logic, we gotta stay strong. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show.